We usually think of William Shakespeare as untouchable, the absolute master of the English language, who wrote with supreme confidence, believing his words could preserve youth and beauty forever. But that invincibility shatters in Sonnet 17. Looking at the original collection published in 1609, this specific poem marks the exact moment a profound, terrifying doubt enters his writing. The sonnet opens with a startling question: who will believe my verse in time to come? He's looking down the barrel of future generations, wondering if anyone will actually buy what he's selling. Think about the weight of that. Arguably the greatest writer in history is explicitly telling his reader that language itself might fail to preserve the truth. The problem, he claims, is that the young man he's writing about is simply too extraordinary. The subject's beauty is so perfect that words are inherently too small to capture it. He writes that heaven knows his poetry is but as a tomb, which hides your life and shows not half your parts. Instead of building a monument that celebrates life, Shakespeare fears his best writing is just a stone container trapping it in the dark. That 400-year-old metaphor still lands today because it's a completely universal feeling. We've all hit that wall where words feel entirely useless, those moments of overwhelming grief or love or awe, where explaining the emotion out loud feels impossible. A photograph can't fully preserve a memory, a painting can't hold a human soul, and even a masterful poem is bound by its margins. Sonnet 17 strips away the myth of the all-powerful creator. What we see instead is a deeply vulnerable artist, terrified by the strict limitations of his own medium. Moving into the second quatrain, he imagines a hypothetical scenario where he actually succeeds. He writes, "If I could write the beauty of your eyes, and in fresh numbers number all your graces." In Shakespeare's day, numbers meant poetic lines or verses. But here is the escalating fear. Even if he magically documented every single detail and grace perfectly, future readers would simply read it and call him a liar. He predicts they would say, "Such heavenly touches ne'er touched earthly faces." By describing the subject's deity as something divine, he pushes it so far past ordinary human reality that nobody will believe it actually existed. It's a communication trap we still fall into. How do you explain an experience so profound to someone who wasn't there without them thinking you made the whole thing up? Shakespeare is cornered. His desperate pursuit of absolute, unvarnished accuracy is precisely the thing that guarantees his future readers won't believe a word of it. By the third stanza, the poem pivots away from this intellectual failure and focuses on something much more tactile and much darker. He visualizes the pathetic physical decay of his own life's work, writing that his pages will be yellowed with their age. He expects his degraded verses will be scorned like old men of less truth than tongue. It's a brutal image of society dismissing the past as just foolish, excessive rambling. He worries his devotion will be written off as a poet's rage, dismissed as mere artistic madness or the exaggerated, stretched meter of a fake antique song. This exposes a terrifying vulnerability. The artist's ultimate fear isn't death. It's surviving, but only as a forgotten relic, or worse, as an object of mockery. But then comes the final couplet. Right as the panic peaks, the structure turns, and the anxiety is suddenly resolved. Shakespeare finds a loophole to the failure of language: biology. He tells the young man, "But were some child of yours alive that time, you should live twice, in it and in my rhyme." He splits the legacy into two distinct paths: blood and art. A living descendant provides the tangible proof needed to validate the artistic record. Together, they form a closed loop that defeats time. We don't create things because immortality is a guarantee. We write, paint, and build out of a desperate, universal hope that at least some small fragment of us will survive the clock. Put yourself back in that room with him for a moment. When Shakespeare physically inked these words onto the page, he genuinely did not know if a single person in the future would care enough to read them. Yet here we are. He was a panicked, insecure writer, terrified of being forgotten. And today, scholars and schools across the globe dissect those exact insecurities. That is the supreme irony of Sonnet 17. The very poem, built entirely around his dread of being dismissed and erased, turned out to be the precise mechanism that preserved his subject for 400 years. In the end, by freely admitting the sheer inadequacy of his own art, Shakespeare accidentally proved its immortal power.